Now, the man we have up next is a great man who I'm sure you all know, and of course I'm talking about Andrew Davies. Andrew is the director of Well Played, former CEO of a private family group which owned the Eagle Ridge golf course down the beautiful Mornington Peninsula. He's a golf business specialist. He is now involved in Well Played projects, and he also believes that the golf industry has some clear lessons to learn from other industries through pricing strategies, but I'm going to let him talk all about that. So please, a round of applause for Andrew.
I'm missing a clicker. Oh, this one here. Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon. The witching hour prior to afternoon tea. Stay with me. Just before I start, there's one thing that I've really noticed all of our facility profiles have in common. They've all talked about revenue. Several of them have taken over underperforming facilities, and their number one priority was revenue. In this industry, we have some excellent managers of cost. Tends to be a go-to area. I don't think, and probably speaking on behalf of some of the vendors out there, there's many other industries that have more fearsome cost cutters than the general manager of a golf facility, but we don't focus enough on revenue. So let's start talking about it today. Thanks for the introduction, Brodie. Great man, that's fantastic. I actually wrote great, magnificent man, but we'll go with great man. That's awesome. So I am those things. For my sins, I got involved in the golf industry as a golf course owner. We ended up doing that through a family business that my wife and I took over about 10 years ago. We had a great management team, so my wife and I fulfilled a few different roles. Katie's here today, and Katie's been a huge supporter and heavily involved in the forum as well. We just sold Eagle Ridge to the Chen family, who Charlie's here today as well. Nice to see you, Charlie. Passing over Eagle Ridge to a new generation of owners, which we're really proud of, and we're still involved as much as we can be. But let's talk about Eagle Ridge for a second. We operated Eagle Ridge in an environment that was a tourism holiday destination, the Mornington Peninsula, and most of you will have heard about it. It's an area famous for its beaches, its wineries, its food, and 15 golf courses within 15 minutes drive of each other, most of which were open to the public. Very competitive sector. Eagle Ridge, nice photo of it here, rebuilt in the year 2000 by my late father-in-law. We initially saw great growth, really good ranking, top 25 public access course in the country. Phil Ryan, sitting over there, helped us extensively with the master plan. But things got pretty quickly tougher. There were many new courses that opened up on the peninsula. We had St Andrews Beach, Moona Links. We had some other facilities a little bit further away, Sandhurst Club, Settlers Run, all top facilities that had been opened up with better rankings than ours, new facilities. Golf media, with great respect, at that time, loving the latest and greatest golf course, got all the attention. I can't complain too much because that was our strategy when we opened. But things got a little bit tough. Customers weren't valuing this grand clubhouse that we'd built, and they certainly didn't appreciate the new beer prices it came with. And we actually had some of the old members saying, well, hang on, I can get beer cheaper at the supermarket than I can at the bar. That's not cool. And that's a true story. Enormously hard when your customers benchmark you against Woolworths for beer. I think some of you have heard that story before in your own facility. So we had little rounds growth, we had little price growth, we had low utilisation, but we had happy customers. We always got great feedback. There were some people that hated us, but our customers who kept coming back, they actually loved us. We're a bit of a unique experience on the peninsula. So our role as owners was to take risks, try new things. We had a supportive and very skilled manager in Wayne Lucas, who's also here and still manages Eagle Ridge today. But in fact, before they got better, things got a little bit tougher. In any holiday destination, a key period for you is your peak holiday period, which for us was our summer holidays. And over 15 years, our average daily green fee players went steadily down. There was a clear trend. We weren't alone. The other facilities on the peninsula saw this experience as well. People's holiday habits were changing. More golf courses were available. The numbers just steadily declined. Also at that time, we were doing something a lot of people do. This is a memo from 2009. It's a bit hard to read, but there we are in the middle, benchmarking our price during our annual price review against all our competitors on the Mornington Peninsula. We had to fit in the middle. We knew where we were supposed to sit. But what happened is if our competitors' prices all came down, well, so did ours, because we had to sit in the middle. We couldn't be above higher ranked facilities. That would be crazy. At the same time, though, we did start to grow confident that we could play around with price. We weren't huge volume, but with 30,000 rounds, you can start to tinker. That's a lot of visitation. Those kind of numbers allow you to start to tinker around at the edges. So our desire to work with price also led us to Quick18, which I'm not going to talk about in great length because today is as much about pricing theory as it is about pricing tools. But around the same time, I joined the NGCOA and I went over to 3 conferences in a row, 2014 in Orlando, 2015 in San Antonio, and this year in San Diego. And I did that to try and get some learnings from the biggest golf market in the world, and it definitely worked. And there's a few people here who go to that event. Probably the postcard person is Matt Day, who's been over a lot more than I have and has actually really brought back some great programs from the US. In fact, here's a little happy postcard shot from a magnificent barbecue joint in San Antonio. Everyone in this room, with the exception of David Wren from Albert Park Driving Range, is actually here, which is fantastic. But this is a group of Australians that went over to San Antonio to attend that conference and check out Topgolf a couple of years ago. But I learned about the US market. I saw some great facilities engaging in really interesting price strategies, including a good friend now, Don Ray from Augusta Ranch, who you all know, Jay, who really takes these things to a pretty interesting extent with a very basic 16-hole, I think, or a short format executive course in the busy Phoenix golf market. He works his tee sheet and his price harder than any operator I've ever seen. And in fact, many of you will already be working with your price. You'll already be doing things, you'll already be tinkering around with different rates, and that's great, but I would suggest that many of you are doing it without a strategy. That's what we're going to talk about today. But I'm going to ask you some questions first, so I need a little bit of interaction to wake everybody up. So, a couple of questions. First of all, hands up in the air if you believe that your local market competitor golf courses are the #1 determinant of your price. Can I get someone? There we go. Thanks, Katie. One hand in the air. Anyone else? No? Well, that just totally stuffed up my plan. You were all right, so I couldn't do the QI thing. Anyway, Katie, you were wrong. So, that's not the answer we were looking for, so you're all one step ahead of me. Fantastic. You cannot allow your competitors to determine your price. Remember that. It's critical. This time, all right, everyone, hands in the air. Hands in the air for me. At your facility and in your business, I want you to lower your hand if across the last decade your operating costs, your wages, your power and everything have steadily come down across the last decade. We've all seen cost reductions, have we? No, I didn't think so. Maintenance costs, they've definitely come down year on year. That gets cheaper every time. Right. Now, lower your hand if you were able to overcome those cost increases consistently by just increasing your green fees and your membership prices. Drop your hand. Right, you guys are doing well if you can drop your hand there. If you can get those prices up every year to cover your costs, life is good. But for everybody else with your hand up in the air, that's the reality of business. Regular increases of, sorry, you can put them down now. Regular increases of your prices are incredibly hard to do. But without that, it's a very simple game. Costs are going up, revenue is flat or coming down. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is some tools to use pricing to play with that revenue line to get it to go in the right direction. There are, of course, other tools here. There's advertising, there's sales, there's lots of things that we can do to grow that revenue line. We've heard a lot about diversification here today, and that's another critical tool, but today we're going to talk about pricing. A couple of quick truisms about the golf industry. We know it's a fixed cost base. It costs us the same amount every year, whether we have one golfer or 30,000 golfers. It essentially costs us the same amount to present our golf course. We also know that we sell perishable inventory. At 3:05 p.m, the 3 p.m. tee time is dead on the shelf. You can't give it away. Now, we know that, but we don't really act on that as well as we could. The good news is we're not alone here. There are other industries that share these characteristics, and we know what they are. Airlines, hotels, car hire companies, they have the same fundamental fixed cost structure. So why have we been so slow to adapt to some of their strategies to drive yield and revenue? I would argue that there's 4 reasons. One, we're fragmented. We don't have any dominant players who start playing around with price so the rest of us can go, you beaut, I'm going to follow them. And that's clearly what's happened in airlines. With 2 or 3 big players, when one of them changes the game, it's easy to follow. Two, we're constrained, especially in local council-run facilities. There are facilities that their rack rates are gazetted by council. Ridiculous. How can you play around with price? Three, up until recently, we've lacked technology. And four, I think this is a big factor, status quo. We like the status quo in this industry. We worry about upsetting the golfer. We tend to let our customer lead us, and that holds us back. So we had a problem at Eagle Ridge, but if things are generally okay for you, why worry about this? Well, I'll give you some reasons for that too. Because we need to. There are not going to be suddenly 500,000 more golfers in this country. With the right programs, we're going to grow, but it's not going to happen quickly. Two, because we can. We can disrupt the status quo. Three, because we're missing out on revenue. We are leaving money on the table. Jay mentioned this yesterday, critical point. I have a very simple proposition that I want to speak to. We are not pricing our product to reflect the value our customers see in it. We are leaving money on the table, and I'm going to come back to that point. But rather than just growing revenue, I want to characterise the goal in pricing as a slightly different one. We need to come up with the right price for the right person at the right time. There's three things in that statement. Obviously, price. But importantly, for the right person. What I mean by that is that our customers are different. So the right price for one person is not the right price for another. We have to respect that difference. And time. Time can be a lot of things. It can be when you book. Most obviously, it can be when you play. But thinking about time is just as important as thinking about the person. There are three factors here. Right price for the right person at the right time. That's the end game. Get that right, the revenue takes care of itself. So, next thing, little rule. Marketing owns pricing. Not the GM, not finance, not the golf shop guys, marketing. Now, of course, the GM is accountable for revenue at the end of the day. And of course, many of you don't have a marketing department. It'd be great if we all had big marketing departments, but think about the hat you're wearing. And if you're tinkering around with your price, don't do it because you think, well, I need more revenue this year. I better just jack my price up. Setting my budget, that's a great time to think about pricing when I'm budgeting the business. If you're tinkering with your price, you're wearing your marketing hat. Because price at the end of the day is about communication. It's about a dialogue with the customer. And this is marketing. So, those little rules in mind, let's keep moving. If you're going to talk about marketing, it means we're talking about people, right? So I want to talk about people for a minute. Specifically, I want to talk about psychology and how we're not in control of our minds. Now, stay with me here. I know it's a bit of a distraction, but we'll get there. There have been incredible studies done on humans to do with price. Studies that show we pay more when we see prices without the dollar symbol. We pay more for prices with a 9 in it. In fact, shoppers who walk counterclockwise around a supermarket on average shop and spend $2 more. That's a study. That's ridiculous. But that's what we do as people. But I want to focus on one thing. Do people really know what they want? So here's a short video from behavioural economist Dan Ariely. He's the author of a book called Predictably Irrational. This is a TED talk that I'm picking up halfway through. But he's talking about people's behaviour and why it isn't always rational. Thanks, Matt.
Here are two examples of this principle. This was an ad from The Economist a few years ago that gave us three choices. An online subscription for $59, a print subscription for $125, or you could get both for $125. Now, I looked at this and I called up The Economist and I tried to figure out what were they thinking. And they passed me from one person to another, until eventually I got to a person who was in charge of the website, and I called them up, and they went to check what was going on, and the next thing I know, the ad is gone, and no explanation. So I decided to do the experiment that I would have loved The Economist to do with me. I took this and I gave it to 100 MIT students. I said, what would you choose? And these are the market share. Most people wanted the combo deal. Thankfully, nobody wanted the dominated options. It means our students can read. But now, if you have an option that nobody wants, you would take it off, right? So I printed another version of this when I eliminated the middle option, and I gave it to another 100 students. Here's what happens. Now the most popular option became the least popular, and the least popular became the most popular. What was happening is that option that was useless in the middle was useless in a sense that nobody wanted it. but it wasn't useless in the sense that it helped people figure out what they wanted. In fact, relative to the option in the middle, which was get only the print for 125, the print and web for 125 looked like a fantastic deal. And as a consequence, people chose it. The general idea here, by the way, is that we actually don't know our preferences that well. And because we don't know our preferences that well, we're susceptible to all of these influences from the external forces. The defaults, the particular options that are presented to us, and so on.
This last bit's key. We don't know our preferences that well. You've all seen this strategy. If you've ordered a bottle of wine, you get it. We don't order the cheapest one, we don't want to look cheap. We don't order the most expensive one because it's ridiculous. We pick one in the middle. We all like to think we know something about wine, but really, you pick the one in the middle because it just makes sense, and the restaurant knows that, and that's okay. They're giving us choice. Another example, there's quite a famous story, another study by a behavioural economist named Richard Thaler. He asked participants on a beach how much they would be willing to pay for an ice-cold beer from the corner shop at the end of the street, ugly little place, or for the same beer from an upmarket hotel up the other end of the beach. Same beer, purchased for you, consumed on the beach, nice, cold, perfect. You figured it out already. People were willing to pay more for the beer purchased from the upmarket hotel, even though it was not drunk there. They got none of the benefits of that. They just instinctively, when told, you're getting the beer from that hotel, well, I'll pay more for that. What these studies tell us is two things. People do a poor job of determining value from price alone. And secondly, price is contextual. It's the context that helps people determine value. Now, understanding these principles is critical to where we're going to go. Jay made the point yesterday about golf tee times being inelastic. Discounting won't always drive more purchases. A related point is that, and it's also about people, is about your unique pricing power. We heard Biz Sattler speak earlier about creating customer experiences, and there is a unique experience that every golf course offers. There is only one Barnbougle Dunes, just as there is only one Yarra Bend Golf, Burnley Golf Course, Carramar Golf Course. There's only one of you. So what unique problem are you solving for your customer, or what unique experience are you offering? Research yesterday told us that chances are you're one of the closest facilities to your customer. So that's great, that's one of your unique strengths. But a lot of the stuff we've heard about today is also about creating unique experiences. And if you're the only one that offers something, you get pricing power. A lot of MP3 players in the world, only one iPod. Once you become that facility offering something special and unique, you get power and it becomes less about the price. It's another really important piece of human nature. So let's get a bit technical for a minute. Let's talk about how we calculate price. Now, some of this stuff you've heard before, back in school days, it's not that exciting, so I'm going to move through it. I'm going to have lots of reference materials later if you want them. Cost plus pricing. Selling price is set by evaluating all variable costs, blah, blah, blah. You do it in your golf shops. You buy something for this, you sell it for that. Doesn't work for a fixed cost business. You can't take a chunk of your maintenance costs and allocate it to every green fee until you know how many people are going to play golf, which happens at the end of the year. Forget about it, can't help us. Competitor-based pricing, did I mention that earlier? You were all supposed to put your hands up, it was going to be so good. Anyway, utilising competitor prices as a benchmark. It is relevant, but it is not a good way to calculate your price. I'll come back to it. Dynamic pricing, this is where it gets a bit more interesting, but that's a terribly dry definition. To tailor the prices of goods or services for specific customer. Right, move on. Uber, surge pricing. This is a much better example of dynamic pricing. This is something we all know. If you haven't got an Uber yet, in fact, what's the highest multiple price, before I explain it, that anyone's paid? Call it out for me. Has anyone done more than 2 times? Yep. Desperate to get home? So Uber has a great pricing structure. When it's busy, they put a multiple on their price and they tell you before you book it, 1.2 times the usual rate. They have this great justification. We want more drivers on the road. It's going to be good for the customer. We know that's BS. They're going to make more money. But good on them. Great strategy. Surge pricing is the modern language for dynamic pricing. But demand-based pricing or dynamic pricing is not always about gouging, and I'm going to talk about that later. I'll show you a specific example. Value-based pricing, folks, is where it gets interesting. Basing a product or service's price on how much the target consumer believes it's worth. The Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, captures this better. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. This is where it gets really interesting for our facilities. There's a perfect world in which we, of course, know exactly what our customer values something as. And the minute you get your price to line up exactly with how the customer's valuing it, no resistance. But we don't live in that world because the customer won't tell us. Because, as we saw before, the customer doesn't know. So don't think it's about finding that perfect price. It's about heading towards it. Here's a slightly glass half full version of this from Oscar Wilde. A cynic is a person who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. We have a few cynical golf customers out there, especially in public facility land. So the obvious question, how do we determine what value the customer receives? If we're going to set a price that matches their value, we can't just ask them. It doesn't work that way. Well, we need information. We need data. We need information on rounds and utilisation. We need to understand our customer groups. We need to get customer feedback. They will tell us if we ask them. We need to understand their competitor choices. So this is where that competitor price does become relevant. Understanding what choices they have, then understanding how they exercise those choices. How many of you actually ask your customers where else they play? Critical piece of information. If you know that, you know what price they're willing to pay for another facility, which is just another piece of information. I could go on listing this to the nth degree. And I don't mean to paint this as some ridiculous picture of having to collate vast buckets of data and then paying some smart person to figure it all out. But start off with the obvious stuff. You know your rounds and utilisation. Understand what happens when you change the price. Think about, oh, something went up, something went down. Right, I've learned something. Write it down, put it somewhere. Put it in that filing memo. Retain that information. And our goal is to use this information to develop a better understanding of what customers value, and then we change our price accordingly. Now, we already know from experience that some customers in the golf industry like different things, even if it's a small segment. So we know some people like early starts, some people like competition rounds, some people like flexibility, rain checks, some people definitely like priority access to tee times. They're things that people value. And in fact, from our research from Christy yesterday, we also learned a bit about this, because when prompted about what customers look for when they're selecting a golf course, they told us course condition, green fees, design and layout, pace of play. Bill, pace of play, it's up there. So if customers value these things, shouldn't we price for them? They're telling us they value these things. In fact, we intuitively know they value these things, but we're not actually putting a price on them. Value-based pricing is absolutely where we need to get to. So having a look a little bit about how we calculate price, that's not the answer. That's the boring sort of economic stuff. How do we go about setting smarter prices? Well, we need to set strategies, so pricing strategies. This is essentially about adopting a few elements, a few pricing calculation methods, and turning them into strategies. But the reality is we try, we measure, we copy what worked, we ditch what didn't, and we try again. That's what pricing's about. The most relevant pricing methods for golf are dynamic pricing and value pricing. That's what I'm focusing on. But that's not to say that those other methods don't have some role to play, and they might be more dominant at your facility. We all know that there are different kinds of customer. We talked about the different things they valued, so let's talk about in terms of who these different customers are. Now, we've all got the elderly, senior gentleman who pays for their green fee with a bag of coins. Matt Day, you in the room? Yeah, Matt's actually told me about the guys that come in with the bags of coin at his facility. I'm not being rude here, because they actually get into a Mercedes to drive home after they've played with their seniors card. There's another kind of customer that I certainly love. It's the tradie. Comes in, brings three mates, booked his round on the phone, brings three mates, buys a rack of Pro V1s, because he's got to have the best. Wanted that nice new Titleist hat, on it goes, 3 premium beers after the round. Thanks for coming, love your business. Back into his cheap car, not the Mercedes. Now, if we cater for the grumpy senior gentleman who hates our rack rate price rises, we are missing out on charging that tradie that little premium he or she was willing to pay. We're leaving money on the table by catering for the noisiest, most difficult customer. Multiple prices have to be used, so I've kind of answered the question that I posed in my original title, but don't go home yet. Let's think about 3 ways in which people are different. People want different things. They want choice in products. 9 holes, 18, easy example. They also like to have different options when they purchase. In golf, membership versus green fee. They're buying the same thing, rounds of golf, but the member's saying, I'm willing to play more, so I'm going to take out a membership. That's a pricing plan. I'm going to pick a different price. But they also value the same thing differently, and we saw this clearly at Eagle Ridge. I'm going to come back to our winter offer, but in Eagle Ridge, in winter, we had a very low price point. I'm going to come back to how we worked with that. But in winter, in fact, Eagle Ridge wet weather nirvana holds up better than even most of the sand-based courses around us. So arguably in winter, we had the better product. But our price in winter was about a third of our price in summer. It wasn't the product, it was how the customer was valuing it. We knew we actually have, relatively speaking, a better product in winter, and we charge a fraction of what we charge in summer. It's clear. It's how that is valued that drives the price. So while we're on the number 3, let's look at 3 strategies that you can adopt easily in the golf industry. I'm going to start off with pick-a-plan pricing for customers who want a different price. Yarra Bend, Tony spoke about it earlier. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing there. They've introduced a membership, but in fact, it's not a membership as you know it. It doesn't have preferred tee times. You don't get to sit on a greens committee and beat up the super. You get unlimited golf. It's very simple. They call it an access pass because it's unlimited golf. For someone who plays Yarra Bend twice a year, this is not relevant, but that's okay. They're not going to choose this plan. They're going to choose the green fee. Not a problem. Same product. Rounds of golf at Yarra Bend. Great for some people, not for others. In fact, when you book a round at Yarra Bend, you can see the access pass sitting there on the right. Looks great, $0. You can't buy that unless you're part of the access pass program. So they're telling people, just here's a choice based on kind of the amount of golf you play. A second strategy I want to talk about is versioning. So versioning sometimes cuts a little bit across pick-a-plan pricing, but it's focused on people's needs. It's a practice of offering a range of products that are really all based on a core product. Versioning I get very excited about. In fact, I've got my Toro Fun Meter here. It's up on Epic if you haven't picked up one of them before. So I'm really having fun. Versioning, it might be simply introducing a new product, and airlines are brilliant at this. It's not about classes anymore, it's about luggage. Is it included or not? So now we have overhead luggage wars because it's always cheaper to buy a fare without luggage included. That's just a different product. It's a different version of a flight to Sydney. That's all it is. It's not complicated. Different version of the same thing that means I can put a different price on it because some people don't value luggage. It's just an extension of classes, and in fact they're getting so complicated that you can have an economy fare with luggage or a business class fare without luggage. You've got multiple versions of the same thing. In golf we might see more, I think, in the future of a flexible green fee or a non-cancelable green fee. Right now we tend to give people cancellation policies, usually 24, 48 hours. Why not sell them a slightly cheaper green fee that's not cancelable? Or rather, keep your rates for the standard green fee as they are, but call it non-cancelable and introduce a slightly more expensive flexi green fee. We just put the price up. No one minded. So, with other products you create, there's no limit to this. And again, your facility might have something brilliant that you can do to create a version of your round. This one I love, good, better, best versions. This really enables you to start diving into people's valuations. So again, I'm back to Eagle Ridge here. Apologies for me using this same example all the time, but it's kind of useful. So the winter offer was a long tradition of a midweek round of golf with a free card included at a very cheap price. And for years it was stuck at $35. Price-sensitive market, we couldn't get it above $35. When we did, we literally got complaints. $35, that's what we'll pay. Golf and cart midweek, thanks for coming. Generally, only during those winter months when utilisation was low, but in fact this got very popular, this offer, and we got good utilisation during those winter months. So it originally included lunch, and we took that away to try and eke back a little bit of margin, but we kept it at $35. What we did was then introduce 3 versions. The first rate, 18 holes walking, you don't really expect people to buy that when they can get a cart rate for a couple of dollars more. But the point of that was to show how good value the blended rate was with a cart. When we used to say free cart, free is a dirty word. If you're saying something's for free, you're telling a customer, guess what? That cart is worth nothing. You can have it. I don't like including things for free because it cost us money too to run that cart. So straight away, walking rate was there, and actually people started buying that rate, which confused me, but some people prefer to walk. I respect that. So Walking rate, $34, tells us something about the middle price, which is really our classic winter offer. And then we introduced the best product with a hot lunch, a few dollars more. Now, we weren't actually expecting to sell too many of them. That was designed to allow us to tinker around with the price, that $35 price point that people wanted to see in that middle column. Because by introducing a more expensive option and a cheaper option, we got away with tinkering around with that $35 price point. Here you can see it's 36. But in fact, the other thing Eagle Ridge was started to tinker with that 36. It went up to 38 at different times, and they really mucked around with it. So that middle column became our top-selling round again. In 2 years, green fee revenue up 12%, rounds up 16%. And for those of you out there who've already calculated, yes, average green fee went down, but gross revenue went up. And that was mission accomplished. And critically, in what was a competitive sector, everybody had their winter offer. When people came to Eagle Ridge to look for a price, it wasn't about, am I going to play here? Am I going to keep shopping around and see what deal Moona's doing? They came to our website and said, well, we've got 3 choices. It's no longer about, will I buy? It's about, what option will I buy? They've given me 3. I'll pick one. Human nature. Third strategy is differential pricing. And I mentioned this a little bit with what Eagle Ridge was doing. Back to Economics 101, supply, demand. That tells us that some people are willing to pay more for some products than others. Go down to an auction, you see it in its purest form. The crazy person who's willing to pay the most gets the house, right? But we're not auctioning tea times. Maybe one day, not yet. But when you're not auctioning something, you can't get to that perfect price. So again, it comes back to playing with different prices. That's all differential pricing is different prices. And seeing what people are willing to pay. Golfers already behave differently. They book over the phone, they book online, they book via an aggregator. They book earlier or last minute, they redeem a coupon, they use a gift voucher. They do this at all your facilities, but instantly what this gives you is a way to charge different prices depending on how they book. And you do have segments. So yours right now might look like this. You've got your regulars, 65%, you've got your occasionals, play every now and then, 25%, and you've got a great group of social groups. But with a bit more homework, really, your segments should look something like this. You've got the general players, you don't really know much about them. Concession players, 15%, occasionals, 10%. Your groups are still 16%. But you've got your Thursday ladies, you know them, they play every Thursday. You should really have a segment for them. You've got your loyalty club, because you listen to Adam. You've got your super fans, those people that just love you. And you've actually identified them, and you give them offers that are relevant to them. And you've got your member programs like Yarrabend's Access Pass. These sort of segments, you've got them, you just haven't really identified them. This gives you the ability to start serving up different prices. So, differential pricing is really all about creating rules and segments that allow you to come up with flexible prices. So you might have a price that requires customer to follow a rule. Our one at Eagle Ridge was always the best deals were online. If you booked online, you got the best rates. That was one way to manipulate our price. But you could also make it a bit cheaper if they booked in advance. Solid couple of weeks in advance. They were always the best deals. Some prices might only work for certain segments. Seniors, regulars, loyalty club members, they got a certain set of rates. Or a price might be bundled, or a price might even start to depend on factors like peak demand if you really want to get sophisticated. The point here is that you do have the ability already to serve up different prices. There's a little case study I did here that I'm not going to dwell on for too long, but I took a month of golf at a standard golf course. It's their real utilisation. They did 5,500 rounds and almost a couple of $100,000 in revenue. 11 hours every week was more than 80% booked. What if we added $2 to every round booked during those 11 hours? What happens? $2,000, 1%. Not that exciting. What if we added $3 to the rounds that were booked during those peak periods, those 11 hours a week, $3 extra for every tee time? We added $2 to every tee time that was more than 50% but less than 80% full, but we actually dropped $2 off all the tee times in the quiet hours, less than 50% full. $7,000, 3.6% revenue increase, whilst at the same time dropping $2 off half of your tee times. Now, I know that's a kind of crazy example, and the obvious point is, well, some people might not have paid the 3 hours and shifted their round to a later period. Good. Great. Smooths out the tee sheet, opens up the peak period, more inventory, no problem. And I know they're just numbers, But the point is this, demand-based pricing or tinkering with your price isn't always about gouging, it's about just tweaking. Dialing up $1 here, $1 there. But if you could deliver a 3.6% revenue increase while actually saying to your seniors, hey, I dropped the price $2 in the afternoon, go play then. A lot of people would be pretty happy. I just want to comment briefly on discounting. We tend to like discounting. It's a bit of an addiction, but it's dangerous. The more you discount, the more you train customers to expect discounts, the less effective they are. It's that simple. It can be an easy trap to fall into when designing your marketing campaigns to want to put a big whopping 30% off. But if you keep doing that, you're actually telling your customers this is only worth that price. Be careful with discounting. Another concept is desperation pricing. In golf, it's really last-minute deals. I'm going to drop that tee time price on the day of play because if I don't sell it today, I'm never going to sell it, so I may as well drop the price. You are training your customers to wait for it. We all know what happens. Who's flying interstate today? Who's flying home today? Right, go down to the airport. You're a couple of hours early for your flight. Can I get on the earlier flight? No, sir, you bought an inflexible fare. Oh, I really want to get home. How much is it now? Like $800 to fly home to Sydney or something. The airlines have trained us. Rock up on the day, get creamed. No exceptions. That's simple training. Don't fall into the trap of training your customers to wait until the last minute to book. If you must do it in an effective way to grow your customer database, to get attention. Great little quick example from a Brazilian sneaker shop. They used a promotion with a deep discount to create excitement. And they triggered the discount when one of their customers stepped foot in one of their competitor stores. Roll the tape. Sound? Have we got sound, Matt? That's disappointing. I could sing. All right, I'll can the video. Just stop it, Matt. It's no good without sound. Point of the exercise was, as they got into the shop, if you had their app, they geotagged their competitor shops, up popped a message. Hey, Andrew, discount for you in Meatpack for kicks. 99% off, 98% off, 97% off. Start ticking down. See ya. It was great footage of people running through shopping malls trying to get into the shop, and the best guy got 89% off. Now, I know that's a bit of a gimmick, it requires a bit of fun, but the point was they used discounting in a great way to get attention. Discounting's common in retail, where people can buy the same product in a variety of stores, but you can't buy around at Moona Links anywhere else than Moona Links. So when you discount that round, you're telling people about what a round at Moona Links is worth. Sorry to pick on Moona, everybody does it. I like this quote from Seth Godin. He's a genius sort of marketing online guru. Perhaps the reason price is all your customers care about is because you haven't given them anything else to care about. That might seem a bit funny when I've just spent ages talking about price. Do care about it, but don't make it the only thing that your customer cares about. And discounting leads you right there. They judge you by how good this discount is compared to your last one. So let's discuss getting started. A few quick takeaways for you, then I'm going to wrap up. A few principles to follow. One, do your homework. Identify those segments. They are your first step to pricing. If you can identify some user groups, some segments, and think about them and start serving them different prices, you're on your way. But take your customers with you. Be transparent, be consistent. If you make a promise, best deals online, make sure the best deals are online. Don't go, oh, I'm going to do a cheeky deal over there with Scoopon and have a better deal on Scoopon while simultaneously telling people best deals are online. Anyone that's booked a hotel room lately, it's swinging right back to the hotels. They all make commitments. Best price guarantee. You can book it at me. I'm a bit of a tight ass. I test them out. I go to the hotel website and then I go to booking.com, I go to the other places. And you know what? They're right. They've got really good control of their inventory now, and you will get the same price, generally speaking, on the hotel website. Golf has to lead with that strategy. Small steps. We do not need to jack our price by 50% just because we've got a fancy tool that can do that. Measure your results. Be a data junkie. I don't care if it's the ugliest spreadsheet in the world. Build it, monitor it, check it. Gather feedback, ask your customers. If you're scared to ask all of them, ask some focus groups. And don't ask them, hey, would you like golf cheaper? Use data and feedback carefully and together to find out what your customers think. Critical one, take your staff along for the ride. True story. One of our longest and most faithful and loveliest staff at Eagle Ridge, when we started down this journey, actually said to a customer once, and I happened to be standing there, yeah, it's $45 for a tea time now. I don't know why. It was cheaper this morning. Yeah, seems too much. Is that right? 45 bucks. Take your staff on the journey. They've got to be supporting the message. They've got to be explaining to customers, yes, it's $45. If they get the feedback, oh, it's a bit pricey. Look, next time, make sure you book online. It's always cheaper online. Take your staff with you. We made that mistake. Easy ways to begin. Advertise a new approach. I love that one, cheapest prices online, because it's easiest to stick to. Introduce a bundled offer. Throw something in. Warm-up bucket, something like that. Start bundling. It creates choice. Explore options for more peak prices. Think about those key times where you might be able to add $1 here or there. Try and develop, if you're doing really well, a 3-choice model for some of your tea times. Consider a selective price reduction along with what you're doing. If you can simultaneously put $1 on peak times but say, hey, Tuesday afternoons, I've got a great deal, it helps, Helps something about medicine going down. It helps soothe the blow. That sounds better. Promotions should have rules as well. If you're going to start a great discount, even if you're going to do a scoop or anything like that to build your database, that's okay. Make sure it's got some rules around it. Make sure you stick to them too. They might be, for instance, book on a certain day or something like that. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you during Yarraben's video will have absorbed all the detail on that large advertising board there. Did you get it? Did you read it? So this was on screen for about half a second. That board at Yarra Bend is their pricing. As you walk into Yarra Bend, it's got all their prices for everything they do. And the panel on the right used to have all their green fees. Now it says this: the best green fee prices at Yarra Bend Golf are always online. Go to yarrabendgolf.com to see today's best value green fees. For today's walk-in green fees, please check with our friendly golf shop team. And they are friendly because I speak to them a lot. What a great commitment. Clear, transparent, understandable. You know where you stand when you go to Yarra Bend Golf. Big commitment for these guys. What Tony said before is fascinating. They grapple with their price point at board level because they respect their customers. And I really think that's fantastic. At the same time, for them to make a commitment like this gives them flexibility, gives them power. So it's a great example of a way to get started. Final one, working with council. For those of you that do have a council that likes to gazette their rates, I feel your pain. Few ways to get started. Educate, build the case, build a business model. If you want help with a little spreadsheet, get in touch with me. I can do that. Show those in council what you can do with a little bit of pricing power, a little bit of authority under you. Give them comfort. Say, hey, listen, let's agree, instead of a gazetted rack rate, let's have a price ceiling and a price floor, and I'll always work within them. And that's locked in by council. So councillors can be happy, oh, the price will never go over that, and never under that. But once you've got a bit of room to move, it gives you something to do. You can also say to your council, I'm going to guarantee a supply of times, it might be a number or a percentage, that are always going to be at this price. So once again, you need to equip them with the information to go back to the angry rate holder who says, what the heck's going on with my local municipal golf course now? It's doubled in price, which of course isn't true, but they'll say that. Where the council can go back, no, we've locked in 50% of green fees will never be above this price. Go find one of them. And again, take small steps. Don't tell your council that, yeah, it's a great thing. I heard this guy Andrew and you can do this and I'm going to double the price. It's going to be awesome. $1 here, $1 there. Couple of resources that are on my website. This guy's Rafi Mohammed, great book, 1% Windfall, talks about how raising prices 1% can increase profits 10%. Sounds a bit complex, but it's actually a really great book and it gives you a lot of the stuff I've talked about. The other one, John Manning, pricingprofits.com, also on my website. You can text something to my phone, but it won't do any good because I'm not as cool as Sean. I'll give you a reference for that afterwards. He's an Australian pricing guru, really interesting guy. He's got some good podcasts and blogs. I know I'm a bit nerdy on this stuff, but there's really great content out there. I don't pretend to have the answers on this. I've just tried some stuff and found it works. But these are really good resources. If you head to quick18.com.au/forum or email me, I can get you these resources. What I'd love to hear now is that, is there anyone out there who thinks they're going to try something? They might try a bundled offer. Anyone at all? Hands in the air? Beauty. Here we go. Books. Books for those willing to try things. I think I saw a hand up here, did I? And I saw a hand up the back here somewhere. There you go. Who was up the back here? I saw someone. There you go. Rafi Muhammad, bedtime reading. So really, I get passionate about this. I really believe that one of the biggest challenges we've got in this industry is managing that revenue line. If you can tinker with your price and drive your revenue, then you're winning. If you're playing with rack rates and being constrained by the grumpiest seniors, you're making life hard. So get out there, give it a go, have some fun. Thanks for your time this afternoon. It's been good.